Welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg, and today we're going to take a deeper look at Buster Murdaugh. Now, I do want to state that everything that we are covering in this video is either speculation or opinion with very little facts, so I'm just going to start with the facts. So, when we look at Buster Murdaugh, we automatically need to look at Stephan Smith. So on July 8th, 2015, Stephan Smith's body was found on the side of the road, and with a shoddy investigation, it was determined that his death was from a hit and run. Now, there has been changes to that, and I'm going to read a statement out by SLED, but I do want to put some things out that we know that are factual to a certain extent, and why we lead to some of the rumors that we have. So one, we do know that Alec Murdaugh and Randy, aka Randall Murdaugh, end up at the scene less than an hour after that happens. We also know that Randy Murdaugh reached out to Stephan Smith's dad to see if he would like him to investigate what was going on, and that was kind of weird. And then we also know that SLED was never really involved in the investigation, although the rumor is that they have and were involved in the investigation, and I will do some clarification on that. And then there was a lot of rumors around the area around Buster Murdaugh and his involvement with Stephan Smith. So, and then one more fact that I left out is that they were classmates. So Buster and Stephan were classmates. So those are some of the facts of the case, right? And there's some other things that I think that we need to consider in this is that one, Randy or Randall Murdaugh was representing Stephan Smith's father in a totally separate case when it came to some labor laws and some things on that end before Stephan died. And I think that's how they knew each other. I don't know for sure. Does Randy tie back to this case? We don't know. Okay, so that's that. So here's some of the rumors that are going on, and I'm going to present you three different scenarios, and you tell me, do you think Buster Murdaugh was part of this case, okay? All right, let me read this statement from SLED just to give some clarity around what I said with SLED not participating in the investigation, just so that way you understand what I mean by that. They were at the crime scene, and I'm going to read word for word, so bear with me here. So, in the interest of accuracy, understanding, and the continued mission of seeking justice for victims of crimes, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, aka SLED, is providing the following information. On July 8th, 2015, the Hampton County Sheriff's Office requested SLED's crime scene unit to process a death scene involving a body that was found on Sandy Run Road in Hampton County. SLED crime scene agents were dispatched from SLED's headquarters and responded to the scene. Upon arrival, SLED crime scene agents processed the crime scene. The primary mission of SLED is to provide quality manpower and technical assistance to law enforcement agencies and to conduct investigations. SLED's crime scene unit routinely responds to requests for assistance from local law enforcement and fellow state agencies to process crime scenes across South Carolina. The involvement of SLED's crime scene unit at the scene does not automatically indicate a SLED investigation. On July 8th, 2015, SLED crime scene agents attended the autopsy of Stephan N. Smith, where medical examiner Dr. Aaron Purnell concluded Mr. Smith died from being struck by a motor vehicle. Due to the medical examiner's determination, the Hampton County Sheriff's Office requested the South Carolina Highway Patrol to investigate Mr. Smith's death. SLED was not requested by the Hampton County Sheriff's Office or the South Carolina Highway Patrol to investigate Mr. Smith's death in 2015. On June 23, 2021, SLED opened an investigation into the death of Stephan Smith after SLED agents received information about his death, subsequently reviewed the SCHP, so the Sheriff's Office investigation file. Case notes, it was apparent that the Sheriff's Office did not believe Mr. Smith's death was a hit or run by a motor vehicle. Okay, so that's a lot of information. I apologize that it's hard to get through that. It was a lot of words, but just to put it in a nutshell, basically what SLED is saying is that the investigation wasn't good either. And with the trial of Alec Murdaugh coming up, now it's been passed, of course, but when it was coming up, SLED really had to open up and see what else was going on around the Murdaughs, because to this point, there was a lot of death, right? You had Paul, who had killed a young lady on the boat one night. Then you had the housekeeper who died. Then you have Paul and Maggie who died. And then you have Stephan Smith, who is a classmate of Buster, and you have the Murdaughs who attend the scene. Okay, so with all of those facts, I want you to think about that for a moment, and I'm going to present you 3 scenarios. So the first scenario is the easy scenario. They had nothing to do with it. Okay, none of the Murdaughs had anything to do with it. It was just by coincidence that Randy knew Stephan Smith's dad and wanted to help him out with the investigation and possibly go after a wrongful death suit, which, would tie back to their law firm, and he had helped Stephan Smith's dad in the past with some labor stuff. Okay, so that's the first one. Buster had nothing to do with it. Maybe wasn't even home at the time, and it just happened to be that Stephan Smith was going down a rural road. So that's scenario number 1. That's the easy one. Okay. Number 2, there was a lot of rumors about a relationship between Buster and Stephan Smith. Stephan Smith was openly gay and wasn't hiding that fact from any means. Now, he had stated that he was in a relationship with a prominent family member, but he did not ever name Buster or any of the Murdaughs, for that matter, in that relationship. And if you go back and read Stephan Smith's mother's letter, it'll highlight that, where he never came out and said who it was. So the Murdaughs were never implicated in that, and Buster was never brought up, right? But in that case, if the rumors were that Buster did it, maybe Buster, for whatever reason, did it out of pure hate, or maybe he did it out of passion and he actually did have a relationship with Stephan Smith, right? So that's a scenario where Buster actually committed the murder himself, and it plays out a couple of different ways, right? Buster Murdaugh did not like the fact that he was a part of a rumor with Stephan Smith, and that it ends up being a hate crime. Or, like I said, maybe he did have a relationship with Stephan Smith, and it turns out that it was a crime of passion. And the other rumors were that Buster was out with his friends hitting mailboxes with baseball bats on the same night that Stephan Smith dies, right? And if you hear from law enforcement, it does say that Stephan Smith's body was beat up pretty bad, right? Especially his face, okay? And I think that's a pretty huge fact. Now, the third scenario, which is a very real possibility, we know what kind of monster Alec Murdaugh is, and we know that what he's capable of based off of this last suit. I would argue that at some point we're probably going to find out that he had a little bit more to do with the housekeeper's death, right? I couldn't say for sure. That is purely speculation, but we do know that he's been convicted and will be serving 2 life sentences for the death of Maggie and Paul, his wife and son. Okay, so here's how the scenario plays out. Maybe Buster does have a relationship with Stephan Smith, or maybe he doesn't, but Alec Murdaugh hears about the relationship and decides to take matters into his own hands and ends up killing Stephan Smith himself, and then goes over to Randy to ask for help, and that's how they end up at the crime scene under an hour to try to start figuring out how this is all going to play out. And maybe that's why Randy reaches out to Stephan Smith's father from that perspective. And if you read the letter from Stephan Smith's mom, she said that she had actually heard from Randy before she heard from the authorities, which is absolute insanity in this case, right? So again, it could be coincidence, but it could be a little bit more malintent, and maybe Alec Murdaugh committed this murder because of the rumors and because of possible relations between Buster and Stephan. So again, I will say that this is all hearsay. This is all opinion-based. I just gave you 3 different scenarios. I want to hear from you which scenario you think it is, and is there other details that I missed or I left out that you think should pertain to this case? And I want to see those down in the comments below. And as always, if you've been with me this long, you've watched this video, I appreciate it. hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure we continue to grow the videos, and I want to continue to grow the channel with you. We will continue to improve on our content and bring you something new every week. So on that note, I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and until the next video.